Hello everyone, my name is Dhrubesh and welcome back to the Junior Developer channel. Today we're going to talk about one of the real famous state manager called Recoil. So Recoil was basically developed by few folks at Facebook, and as usual they ended up open sourcing it for the community. And it's a pretty minimalistic state manager, I would say. If one has to understand recoil, right? I think this diagram would probably be the best one. So you can look at your state managers in a 3D level graph where the the data layer is completely separated out of the UI layer. And if a part of data layer is something you would want to subscribe to, you can go ahead and explicitly do that. And if you want to update that particular data layer, you have two options. Either you can do that explicitly, where the on subscription of that data, that particular component is being re-rendered, or the second option is, which I figured out quite recently, would be doing it implicitly. So to get started with recoil, you basically are supposed to know just two things. That's it. So atoms, you can look at it as, when we use any state management tooling, or let's say when we use the inbuilt state management tooling which exists in React, we use use state, right? So everything that you put in use state would be one atom. So if you use multiple use states, it could be multiple atoms, right? The same way you could think of it, like if I have to give you an reference of design system, right? So how in design system, atoms are basically the molecular level, sorry, not molecular, atomic level components, right? The same way, in this case, atoms are atomic level data. They are really small snippets of data, which you can, do whatever you want to. And selector basically is it's this is basically a pattern, I would say, right? In Redux we have the selector pattern. Likewise, in selector you could use multiple atoms and you can get a derived state out of it. So it's pretty cool. And again, re-rendering will only take place if any of those derived states actually change, not the ones which is not subscribed. So we're gonna try to build a really small app. It's called the boring app, and I came across this API documentation. It's called the Port API documentation. It basically gives you some activities when you're bored. If you want to do something. So learn Express.js could be one of them. It has type and it has a key. So these are the only three keys which we care about. So what is the activity name? What is the type? And of course the key. Rest all keys we won't be needing for this particular app. The app looks something of this sort. It has got all the types mentioned in the top. It has got two really simple buttons. One is generate random activities, and the second is if you want to reset the state. So if it's selected as all, I can just click on generate random activities. It just shows up make homemade ice cream. And let's say if I want to do something in education, I can do again generate random activities. I can keep on clicking it, and the same way if I click on all, it gets added. And if I go to, let's say, social, and we are not able to find anything under social, we can generate those stuff. So this basically acts as a filter, and it's also tied up to this particular CTA, right? So all would basically means all the activities combined together. If you click on education, it will show you all the activities you can do, which basically buckets inside educational activity. And if you have that selected, and if you click on generate random activity, it will give you a random activity based on the activity type which you have created. So it looks pretty straightforward, but there's a lot which could be done in terms of state management here. So I'm gonna go ahead and scaffold the app. Let's call this boring app recoil. So let's load it out. So this is basically the API, and inside the activities, you can find all the, yeah. So this basically are all the activities which we need. And I added an all extra. All would basically mean that you would want to bucket all the other activities together into one. And on reset, you can just clear out the whole thing. It will show, no data found. So that's pretty much it. Let's wait for this to get triggered. And all right, cool. So we are done here. I can just go inside. I would need my code editor. Cool. And I can just do yarn star. Or maybe I would also need some other libraries which goes along with this. So let me just add those. I will be using Material UI here because this tutorial is not for design system as per se, it's purely for state management. So we'll be needing that. And since we are using APIs, we of course need Axios. And what else? Of course, we need Recoil. How could I forget that? So yeah, I think this is pretty much what we need. And okay, I don't need it full screen. I can just do it this way. Let me just zoom in a bit. All right, so let me start this up. Okay, 3001. So all right, we have a famous Create React app set up here, and we have this in place. We don't really require any of this. Maybe we can just keep the React here. And we can remove all of these, right? All right, so we have got the test here. So if we look at the app here, so it has got few things, right? It has got all the buttons on the top, has got few CTAs which are responsible for the actions, so filters, actions, and all the data. So let's go ahead and quickly build those things. So I'm going to try to build a folder module, and inside that we can have filters sorry, it will be JS, right? I'm not using TypeScript here. And we will be needing action CTA.js, and we will be needing the activity list.js. So I think these three things will suffice for the time being. So let me just go ahead, and I like to use a normal function here. So yeah, if you're wondering how this autocomplete is coming, it's coming because of GitHub Copilot, and I have also made a video out of it which would appear on the right hand side of the screen right now. All right, so no, we don't need this. Uh, so we can do the same for everywhere except this would be let's just call it actions, right? Actions, and then we also have activity list here. And now we can just import everything from okay. Nice. All right. So we have all the things we require here, and we can use the fragment here too. So I think filters are the first thing which we need. Then we can have the actions. Yeah, gosh. So let's look at it how it looks. Okay, that's fair. That's fair. We have it just coming one after each other. And since we're gonna use recoil, so the API is somewhat similar to how in context API we have providers which we wrap around on the top, right? The same way, if we want to leverage recoil, we have to add something called as recoil root, which I'm gonna do in a moment. So I can just go ahead and import recoil root from recoil. Sorry. All right. So I think we are done with the basic setup now. So now we can just go ahead and start with fetching the data. So okay, we would also need some states. I think we can call it as atoms, or maybe let's call it store. Let's keep it outside of module. So inside store, we would have atoms and we would have selectors. So as mentioned earlier, atoms are the most granular level state. So Recoil provides a way to do that. It's pretty straightforward. We can just call atom from no, not this, recoil. And I think for the time being, the only thing which we require is a boring state, or let's call it just boring activities. And so it basically takes an object as an argument, which would have two keys. One is, of course, the key. So key is basically the unique identifier internally which Recoil uses for a particular atom. If you try to give identical keys to two atoms, so if you update one of them, the other one also tends to get updated with the same data. I personally don't see a use case of that, to be honest, but you never know. And By default, I would want activities to be an array of objects. So I'm gonna default it to an empty array. So this looks good. Now let's move back to our actions. Action is where all the action is supposed to take place. So since we'll also do the data fetching in this part, we'll just call axios here, and we won't be needing anything else, I believe. Okay, yeah, we won't really be needing anything else. So we can just generate random activities. So there's a function which we want to create, and no. So let's take in the API from here. Let's do rest.data, and then I think let's just console log it for now. And see, we're gonna not handle the error catching in this, but of course, if you want to, productionize it, you should do that. And just to test this data out, if it's working fine so far or not, we can just call this particular function on component did mount. Okay, so I can just call this here and see if it logs out anything. Okay, it has got an object. So yeah, correct. So it's basically calling this API, and this API is working pretty fine. So yeah, cool. This looks good. So now we have the data layer in place. Not the data layer, the data fetching layer in place. Now we have to leverage the atom which we created here. It's called the boring activities. Let's just go ahead and import it here. Store atoms, okay. And now we have to use something called as the use recoil state, which is pretty similar to use state. The API is completely identical, so you can have like boring activities, and then you can have set boring activities. Oh, nice. Thanks, GitHub Copilot. And now every time we get this, I can just do something of, yeah, I need the response. And I can do activities. Yeah, but I'm already doing .data earlier, so I don't need that. So right now, since we have this in place, let's see if it's adding this to atom by logging it out. Okay, so there is some error here. Of course, this happens during live coding. Oh, cannot. Oh, so the name of the state and the atom is identical. So let me just call it activities, and this as well, set activities. Okay, yeah, this is an object, right? Okay, so all the errors are gone. That's good. That's good. So we can see that the state here out of the atom is getting populated now. So I would ideally want this to happen not on component date mount like we have here in the use effect, but I would want to have a CTA in place which should take care of this. So as I mentioned earlier that we're going to use material UI, so I'm going to go ahead and import the relevant stuff. So for the time being, let's just call button. All right. So we just need, let's also import box. So box is like div, but with some additional cool stuff which you might see, me using here. So instead of fragment, let me replace it with okay box, and then let me have a button. Okay, so I think we can name it as, generate random activities. Okay, and on click I would want it to call generate random activities, and now I can completely remove this. Okay, so we're gonna not really focus on the stylings at all here, but for the sake of it being presentable, let me just add a styling here. Okay, so I think this looks good. Now let's see if it's being populated. Yeah, we're getting all the activities in place. All right, do we need any other thing here? Yeah, we would need one more button. That would be for the reset. So reset data, basically it will go back to nullifying the whole data. And let me also add, so the cool things which I was talking about, right? You can directly add display flex, and what else? I also would want to add some margin to this. Yeah. And in reset, I think I can just use an inline function here and do something like set activities to an empty array, which should completely reset and remove all the data. So, oh wow, why is it calling 5 of them? Okay. If you're wondering why this is coming, I have turned on my profiling, so it's highlighting all the things that are being updated right now. So yeah, this is also one of the wonderful thing about Recoil, right? So this Recoil atom which we imported, right? This is only subscribed to this element, and that is the reason when I click on it, only this particular part of it is being re-updated, re-rendered, right? Rest all of the things are still static. So that's really commendable, right? I can go ahead and do reset data as well, which is working fine too. So now I think we are done with the generate random activities for the time being. Now let's go ahead and render all these activities. So I can go here. Let me just copy this here. So yeah, so again we would be needing that atom here, and recoil also has something called as use recoil state. So in this case, since this component activity list is solely responsible for rendering the list, and it's basically a dumb component, right? A smart component is where you do all the manipulation, but a dumb component is basically where you just render out things, like how functional components used to be before hooks came into play. So this is one of those, ideal example. I'll also copy this import here to the activity list. So I don't need button here. Box should be suffice. Okay, and let me add the same margins here. Wait, let me use the recoil. Sorry, it will be use recoil value, not recoil state. This way, since we don't care about the state, we can just have the we don't care about updating the state, so we can just have the value in place. So we can name as activities and subscribe it to the boring activities atom. And so I would like to add a condition here. So if length is greater than 0, then I would want to map through this element. Oh man, GitHub Copilot is messing this up. Yeah, but we also need something else. This side where it says no data yet. Okay, that's a good example. But let me just do this. I don't need index. I think there's some issue with the indentation. Okay, I'm supposed to close this. Yeah. So it says no data yet, and when I click on it, oh, this is supposed to be an object, right? So inside the object, I have to do activity. Okay, I can just do this right then. And I will also be needing the key. All right. Yeah, so we are getting something at least here, right? So yeah, we just care about the key and this. So let's add maybe some style to this. We can use the box element here as well, and we can add the key to, and we can add the PG color as black, and I don't know, color as dark. I think it should be capital. Okay, but we might also need to add some padding to it and some margin to Make it look better. All right. And we wanted to go one after another, so we can maybe add display flex and flex wrap. So yeah, it's starting to get one after another, but that's fine. So that's there, and we would also want to beautify this. So I think we can use almost the same styles. We might end up updating some of the color based styles. We don't need key here. So I think the background color could be black, which it was, and dark gray as well. Yeah, maybe we can add a border here with some border color as red. Alright, so this basically would show that no data available. Okay, and when I click on it, alright, that's fair. So on reset data, it will reset that. Let's go to the filters, which is the last remaining part of it. Then we'll look at how we can go ahead and boost the performance of this whole app. So for filters, we basically need all the activity types in place. All the activities could be found here. So I can just let's do just types, right? In fact, let's not declare it here. Let's create a constant. Let's declare it here, and as mentioned earlier, we will also be needing an all type, which will bucket all the other types too. And this types will mainly be used in non-actions. It will be used in filters, right? So filters is basically this part, the top part which we are missing. This is how the app is supposed to look, and this is where we are right now. So yeah, so for filters, not export buddy. I can do this. So we have got the types now, right? Now we just have to map it out and render all the types, and we would be using, as mentioned earlier, we would be using material UI. So we can use button and button group. Okay, I think the spelling of button group is correct too. So let me just go ahead and do this, and here we can just map through it. So we can add the types as key because we know they are unique, And here also we can add the types. No, just to type. And we can use a return statement here if required. Yeah, so I think this looks good. It's fine. We are zoomed in. That's why we have to scroll. That I think should be fine. But now we also have to figure out that if the activity type is selected, we would want that particular activity to be highlighted, right? So let me just go ahead and add few color group as well to this so that it looks good. Let's make an outline and primary, and yeah, so this looks good. So now this is basically a doubling button which does not do anything, and we have to create a new atom for this as well to store which particular activity type is selected at the moment. So let's go to atom and create one. We can just call it selected. Selected activity type, and inside that key could be selected type, and the default value could be all, but since we are not really using, this should be T. We're not using TypeScript here, so maybe let's import that out. So this is on the for module / constant. I think it's types. Sorry, it's types. Okay, I think this is looking good. We might want to import this to filters. So atoms, and yeah, we also have to handle the how this selected state is manipulated. So we would be needing the import use recoil state, and yeah, we can just call it selected type and set. Come on, I'm counting on you, GitHub Copilot. Never mind. Sorry. Use recoil state. So now what we can do is, if the state is same, we can maybe add some color to it. Select it. Yeah, cool. Just exactly I want. So now, as you can see, all is selected. Now we'll also have to add an on-click event to this, which will basically update the selected type. So as you can see, it's getting updated. All right. So now we have all the pieces together, but we have two the atoms right now defined, and one is the selected activity type and the other one is all the boring activities. Now we have to map through this selected activity type with the boring activities, so that we can filter it out accordingly. And in order to filter it out, there are multiple ways we can go ahead. And of course, if like you would have guessed it correctly, we're gonna go ahead and use something called as a selector. So and recoil, it's also called selector with no s. Um, so so I can just export it. And now the API for selector is pretty similar to how we created atoms. It's selector. This also accepts a key. I'm not going to think much and add this as a key directly. And it accepts a get function as well. Get function would have the get argument too. And yeah, that's pretty much it. And inside the get, we can do, whatever we want. Now, as selector is supposed to be derived data, so we need to get the two atoms and then filter it out, right? So we can just import boring activity and selector activity from atoms. Okay, so now that we have this, we can just go ahead and create the filter, which would be the selected activity type, and then list would basically be the boring activity. All right. So when we do this, we can at the point when we are using this selector, we can get the latest update, latest value of this particular atom, and even if any of these two atoms seem to get updated, we can go ahead and the basically the component which will be using this particular selector, which is it's subscribed to, would also get re-entered. So basically, if it's a derived state, the dependent derivation from the atoms which it's happening, if those get re-rendered, then also the component is supposed to be re-rendered because, of course, they're subscribed, right? So in the filter, I can just do, yeah, I would also need types here. So let me, because we want to use all here, I think it's inside module. Okay, cool. So I can do Let me put this later. Put this here. Okay, on over here. So if it's all, we would directly wanna just return it. Else, if it is something, then we might want to filter the list. Correct. So it will just go ahead and filter the list and give it to you. So now we have to figure out a way to use this particular selector, right? So now selector, you could look at it as a way just to get the value, right? So you don't necessarily need a way to update it, because as mentioned earlier, it's dependent on atoms, and if those atoms get updated, this filter and the component which is subscribed to this filter automatically gets updated. So we can smartly use recoil value instead of course, rather than using use recoil state. So we would go to our dump component, which is the activity list here. Earlier we are using the use recoil value from boring activities, but right now we can just go ahead and use the selector. So I can just import it from here. I can remove this and it should work as expected. So it's generating some random stuff. Let me go to recreational, no data found. I'm not sure why that happened. Let me just try again. So in education, no data found. Oh, okay. So something is wrong in the filter. Oh, so this will basically be the event, the on-click event, right? We don't want to, assign that to the selected type. We want to assign it the type itself. That's why it was throwing an error. So let me just go ahead and generate some random stuff. Let me go to education. That's weird. Oh, so this is happening because we're not using the activity specific API, right? We're just calling all the APIs available here. So we're not calling any specific activity API. So here also we have to go ahead and leverage that. Yeah, that's correct. Set activities. Okay, cool. Yeah, I think let's do that. Let's go back to the API documentation and type. Okay, so I can just add a type something of this sort. And before that, I would also be needing the selected activity type atom here. Okay, no. Selected type, use recoil value, and it automatically imports that for me. So I can do this and so it's type this, selected type. I think this should work out fine. Let's see. Okay, so something is wrong, terribly wrong. Oh, right, we don't really want to call it if the selector type is all. So, again, we would like to import types here from constant. So I can just do, yeah, I can just do it as type empty. So if selected type is equal to 0, then we can just pass an empty string, else whatever the selected type is. So, oh, I think it's types. And we also want to add it here. Okay, so I think it's working fine now. Let's check it out. Okay, I can go to social. Okay, now it's giving me all the activities I can do under the social bucket. I can very well go to all, and it will also have all the things which we require. For education, it has this. Yeah, I think this pretty much looks good.